This podcast is brought to you with limited interruption by Rudy Luther Toyota. Whether looking for an exciting brand new Toyota, a certified pre-owned vehicle, or getting quality routine maintenance and service for your vehicle, Rudy Luther Toyota is the place to go. Rudy Luther Toyota, the southeast corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley. Broadcasting live on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. In the evenings on WCPT 820 Chicago's Progressive Talk. And on your Saturday morning, hello there, Seattle, 1150 AM KKNW. It is the Matt McNeil Show for your Friday, Saturday, Seattle. Hey, good to be with you today. Nice to have you with us as we're heading into the Labor Day weekend. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Patrick is in here producing for us today. Any exciting plans for the Labor Day?
Well, I will probably go to the state fair at least once. I can't speak for Seattle or Chicago, but it looks like we are going to have about as good of weather as you will have for any holiday weekend in the Twin Cities this weekend.
If you've never been to the Minnesota State Fair, there are some places you go as a foodie. Pick your Italian city. Paris is pretty good. I will say Barcelona, very underrated. As a matter of fact, one of my dream trips before I leave this spin and rock is I want to do a food stand tour, a street food tour of South Korea. That looks amazing. I really want to do one of those. But if you've never been to the Minnesota State Fair, it's not like most other state fairs. We had the llama alpaca costume contest on Wednesday, which, if you've never seen those magnificent beasts dressed up in costume, I think the Loch Ness Monster one was brilliant. That was some quality stuff. There's also one that was the Statue of Liberty, which, majestic. You got to come see this thing. This thing is nuts. And the food is exceptional, and we get spoiled every year, every time we have this thing. So I highly recommend Seattle, Chicago. You get the chance. You come up here. It's always the week, a little bit of the week before the Labor Day weekend. You get it up here. It's packed. It's fun. It's amazing. You'll have a good time. And if you have any questions, you want to come on out and do this thing, get in touch with me. I'll tell you exactly, depending on what you like for food, what you want to do, I'll tell you exactly where to go and how to do it, okay? Okay, cool. We'll do it that way. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. I just really quick want to briefly, because I mentioned this the last 2 days, I had another Republican whose argument is, but Matt, Donald Trump was at Arlington National Cemetery to honor Gold Star families. And I've said this from the get-go. That's perfectly fine. That is perfectly fine. And once again, that's not the problem. The problem was, if you wanted to come out and do this, that they have very specific rules about political events going on out there. He and his entire team were told this. They ignored this. When the Arlington National Cemetery personnel tried to stop them, they became abusive with them. And once again, I want to make sure I say this. Absolutely, the soldiers who were honored with this visit should be honored. Their sacrifice is greatly appreciated. But you see all those other headstones in there? They might not want Donald Trump taking pictures like he's at the freaking opening of an Arby's restaurant. Thumbs up, big smile, next to their beloved deceased. The fallen soldiers that deserve our honor and respect. They have a right to dictate what is appropriate for their headstones. Those families. You, whatever family has invited him out there, it's fine you wanted to, but you do not have the authority to validate his actions with any other headstones but your own. And the fact that you guys seem to have forgotten that is an extreme disappointment. I still salute your families by all means and the sacrifice that was given, but you do not have the authority to dictate what is and is not appropriate for any other headstone in that cemetery. End of story. It is amazing to me how many people are trying to still validate this under the argument of it was nothing major. Speaking of something that's major, okay, I've so about a week ago, I went to a deli and they were giving me some deli meats, and I said, and they said, "What do you want? You want the boar's head?" I said, "Yeah," and she said, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah," and I knew of this story at that point, but I was somewhat surprised that the deli counter worker was like, "Really? You're gambling here." We got to talk about boar's head and what is probably going to be the end of this company, because this is disturbing. But we also have to talk about how this was able to happen. Inspectors turned up dozens of violations at a Boar's Head plant in Virginia, now linked to a nationwide recall of their deli meats, according to new records released by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, including mold, mildew, and insects repeatedly found throughout the site. Last month, Boar's Head recalled all of their deli meats made at its plant in Jarratt, Jarratt, Virginia, after a listeria outbreak was blamed on products distributed from the facility. So far, the hospitalizations are 57 in 18 states linked to recalled products from the plant. At least 9 deaths. 9 people have died because of the amazingly unsanitary conditions at a Boar's Head deli plant, including two people in South Carolina, 1 each in Illinois, New Jersey, Virginia, Florida, Tennessee, New Mexico, and New York. It's the largest listeria outbreak since the 2011 outbreak linked to cantaloupe, and I remember that one. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention said Wednesday. As a matter of fact, I'm going to just say this. Still today, you don't see cantaloupes in grocery stores like you did before that outbreak. You see, I'm not saying you don't see some. Sure, you do. But I see a lot of other melons, but not cantaloupe as much. I mean, it used to be like bananas. Cantaloupes used to be in grocery stores like bananas, and there are plenty of times I'll go in and I won't see one. So, samples from unopened products distributed by the Boar's Head plant were found by authorities in multiple states to be contaminated with bacteria listeria. Genetic sequencing linked the bacteria from the products to the strain driving the current outbreak. Yep, you're guilty. People have urged to double-check their fridges for the recalled meats and try to clean any surfaces that might have touched them. Great. I'm reading the book Cold Storage right now, which this is not. It's a horror book about bacteria and fungus, and it's not good. Needless to say, yeah, this is perfect. Perfect. Hey man, I love my deli meats. I love a good deli sandwich. Grinders for us Rhode Island folks. Records released by the USDA's Food Safety and Inspection Service to CBS News through a Freedom of Information Act request tally 69 records of noncompliances flagged by inspectors over the past year at the Jarratt plant. While the service was ultimately responsible for overseeing day-to-day operations at the plant, a spokesperson for the agency said Thursday that it was relying on staff from Virginia, not from the company, it sounds like, not USDA employees to man the site. Once again, this is exactly like Boeing, and if you've not seen the Last Week Tonight episode they did on Boeing, where basically they were regulating themselves to the point of holes in, leaving doors that were not secure on planes. This is one of those cases where, due to conservative regulations and conservative policy and Trump policies, this is how we get to this point that, hey, the foxes are guarding the chicken hen. The chicken hut. So it's unclear whether Boar's Head will face any penalties of the USDA for repeat issues. Of course they won't. Or what is it going to be, $20? You know what? We're going to get our super duper penalty here. It's $25. Please. There's no consequences for killing 9 people. There are no consequences. And as a matter of fact, there's probably language on some freaking wrapper of a lunch meat that says, oh, by the way, if you consume it, you can't sue us. Because that's something that conservatives have also done, is made sure that basically you can't be able to sue anyone when they wrongly injure you or kill you. All operations has been suspended at the Jarratt plant. Really? And the company is working to disinfect the plant and retain employees. No product will be released from the plant until it meets the highest quality of safety standards. Beyond issues like paperwork lapses and leftover meat on equipment, what? This is in their plant. The records show inspectors faulted Boar's Head several times for mold and mildew building up around the company's facilities at Jarrett. In July, federal inspectors found what looked to be mold and mildew around the hand-washing sinks. Jesus, for the workers tasked with the meats that are ready to eat. Hey, just wash your hands in that bacteria-laden pool there. Jesus. Mold was found building up outside the steel vats used by the plant. Yum. It's tangy. Previous records show as well it's holding coolers between as well in the holding coolers between the site's smokehouses. Yikes. A black mold-like substance was seen throughout the room of the wall concrete junction, as well as some caulking around the brick and metal, they wrote in January, saying some spots were as large as a quarter. Other locations were found to have a number of issues with leaking or pooling water, including a puddle found to have green algae growth. Oh, you're making your own ecosystem. How nice. Inside, in condensation that was found to be dripping over product being held. After inspectors flagged one of the leaks and the company workers tried to mop up the leaks, the employee wiped a third time, and the leaks returned within 10 seconds. Inspectors wrote after one condensation issue was raised on July 27th near fans that looked to be blowing the liquid onto uncovered deli meats. Yikes. In February, an inspector found ample amounts of blood. Wow. In puddles on the floor and a rancid smell throughout the cooler used at the plant. A number of records also flagged sightings of insects in and around deli meats in the plant, including one instance that prompted the agency to tag more than 980 pounds of ham in a smokehouse hallway to be retained for an investigation. In June, another record flagging concerns over flies in and out of vats of pickle left at Boar's Head in a room. Small flying gnats like insects were observed crawling on the walls and flying around the rooms. The rooms had heavy meat buildup. You got to get up there with the shovel, you got the heavy meat buildup. Other parts of the facility were found to have bugs, including what looked to be ants traveling down the wall, as well as beetles and cockroaches. Yum! This pickle loaf is delicious. Anyway, the Trump administration, by the way, got rid of a lot of regulations, regulatory agencies, funding for all this stuff. They did all this, and this is what you get. Because the Republican argument is always the same thing. That, we shouldn't burden these plants with these regulations. They can regulate themselves. Why would they want to damage anyone? Because I can tell you what, no matter what, my guess is, I'm going to just take a shot in the dark, just a wild speculation, that this company's primary wasn't not killing their customers with their poisonous meats, but their biggest concern was the executive golf tee times and who's going to get the newest car in the parking lot and who has the best new vacation home. You see, it's broken. The system is broken. There are no consequences. And all these executives will all leave. No one goes to jail. 9 people dead. Yeah, it's pretty god-awful. But this is conservative America, and my God, we've got to fix it. It's the Matt McNeil Show here on your Friday. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Patti Vasquez, by the way, going to join us here, coming up here at the bottom of the hour, of course, from our good friends at WCPT in Chicago. We'll chat with her. And then, of course, coming up in the 4 o'clock hour locally here, Paul Metsa, music legend from Minnesota. He's going to join us and talk about his new song as well. As we just, we're 2 guys from the Northland, so we can talk about all sorts of things. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. So I want to kind of give people an idea of the real danger we have here, because I have talked before about when Trump loses in November, because I'm pretty convinced at this point he's going to lose in November. When Trump loses in November, that he can't go to the Electoral College and hope that the outgoing vice president, who would be Kamala Harris, will somehow void her victory over him. So he's got 2 months to try to overthrow the election. We've talked extensively about how he is recruiting people to try to gum up the works, to refuse to certify, to try to basically get it to where the House of Representatives picks the next president, and even though he might get destroyed in the general vote, that they'll install him as president. But as well, I think he's also prepping his supporters to push the idea of a physical attack. There was a story I read this morning where people on the right in Michigan, are convinced that he should win 80% of the vote. 80. And that the only way he doesn't win 80% of the vote is if the Democrats cheat. And that's the kind of brainwashing that leads to people getting killed. It really is. Now, I've talked about the people trying to fix the elections per se, but let me talk a little bit about what it might look like as far as physical violence in the aftermath of a Trump loss and these MAGA morons basically trying to overthrow the country, at least going out with their hit lists. Now, the reality is this, as MAGA tries to sit there and say, we're all going to fight. Now, most of MAGA is 65 plus, and they might be angry and volatile, but they also don't want to spend the rest of their lives in jail, which they would, and they sure as heck don't want to see all their worldly possessions they've worked so hard at being taken away from them to the families that they attacked. They do not want that to happen. So this is going to be a small group of repressed, predominantly white men who might go on out and do something. And in the history of this country, there have been a few times where stuff like this has happened. And I want to particularly talk about what is known as the Quantrill's Raid, which was the Lawrence, Kansas massacre. Now, if you haven't studied the history of, leading up to the Civil War and the absolute chaos that was Kansas and Missouri, bloody Kansas, that it was basically this outright fight between slave owners, people that were pro-slavery, and people that were anti-slavery. And during the Civil War, there were attempts, there were skirmishes between groups of people who were against slavery on people who were pro-slavery and people who were pro-slavery who were against slavery. And the Lawrence, Kansas, this happened in August of 1863, August 21st. William Quantrill was a pro-slavery, pro-Confederacy Missourian who was upset by raids on slave owners' plantations in southern Missouri. And by the way, if you've ever been to Missouri, the southern part of Missouri is the South. I mean, you go past St. Louis and you go down the highway and all of a sudden you just drop down into the bayou. It's all farms and stuff. It's the South. And it's one of the reasons why the Republicans have become a bit of a stronghold there now is because a majority of the state outside of St. Louis and Kansas City basically are, continuing that trend. Quantrill rallied, 450 people to invade the pro-Union town of Lawrence, Kansas. And they had, 450 men that came to Lawrence, Kansas, and they had a list of people they were looking for, and they killed 150 people. Not all the people they were looking for, but they went they went out there. This was just outright revenge and theft. I mean, they talked about how they wanted to take a bunch of their stuff. So, and that's I don't think that that's too uncommon for what you would see with these MAGA people. It's not just he's got a DVD player that's really nice. I think that that's part of it too. They had their targeted list. They rode into town. They killed 150 people. The Union forces basically consolidated, chased him down. He was killed in Kentucky. Quantrill was at the end of the war, the bastard, after he'd done his damage. When I look back on this, I think that is... I think that's somewhat similar, that if violence does break out in this country after the election, it's going to be similar to that, only a lot dumber, if I can be blunt. I think that this would be a case where these MAGA people would try to get a list First of all, they'd be all dressed in khakis and blindfolds, or not blindfolds, face masks, like they do when they try to show up at these rallies, and they'd go on in there and they try to, do what they're going to do. They'll probably all have their cell phones on them, so it'll be easy to track them and find all of them. I mean, they're not that smart, and they will try to kill a bunch of people, and they probably will succeed at killing a bunch of people, just like Quantrill's raid did, and they will be hunted down and thrown into jail for the rest of their life and insist that they were just victims here. And they'll either be victims because I think Donald Trump wanted you stole the election and I'm right, or they finally will wake up and it's like, all those people I was trusting lied to me. I didn't realize it was great. It will be a hoot no matter what. You're going to rot in prison as we drive your truck around outside the prison going, woohoo, it's mine now. I say this because there has been a rash of right-wing MAGA idiots who have all of a sudden taken to social media with the argument of leave your Kamala Harris signs out in your yard so we know where to start shooting. That's them. They have started this. And, of course, a lot of people have vocally said, okay, well, thanks for letting us know. By the way, we can track down your social media page. We're alerting the authorities. Idiots. Because that's all the right has left is bullying and scare tactics. They don't have any policies. They don't have anything decent. They're just it's about getting their villains list, and it's bullying everybody else. And that's all it is. Doesn't mean that people won't get hurt. It doesn't mean people won't get killed. It just means that you need to kind of be aware of this and realize that these people, well, frankly, they're broken. And Trump is playing the fiddle and getting them to dance. Just keep that in mind. Patti Vasquez, when we come back, it's the Matt McNeil Show. Broadcasting in the evenings on WCPT 820 Chicago's Progressive Talk, in the overnights on 1150 AM KKNW in Seattle, and, of course, in the afternoon on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show for your Friday. Patti Vasquez is the fantastic host over at WCPT. The Patti Vasquez Show is on from 5 until 7 locally in Chicago. She airs at 9 p.m. here on AM 950 in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and she's kind enough to come back after her DNC extravaganza and talk a little bit about the impacts of the DNC and how things are going so far. Hi, Patti.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. My show is better when you're on it, man. My bestie out there. How is Chicago doing? That was, I mean, it looked very good on camera. It looked very good. The city looked great. I think it came off as far as it could go. I mean, when you look at what happened with the RNC in Milwaukee, I think Chicago came off looking of the two cities a lot better after their convention.
Thank you for saying so. We are incredibly proud. I think a lot of people were relieved, right? There was all this online energy of let's make it worse than 1968, descend upon Chicago kind of thing, and I think we also learned a little bit about how to manage crowds and also manage law enforcement coming in from all over the country. They had a very tragic situation in Milwaukee when a police officer from Ohio, they were, I don't know if you saw this, even the footage of this group of police officers who were doing kind of a pre-shift meeting saw a homeless individual getting into a fight. He had a knife and they killed him. And sadly, that's the kind of thing that I think that Chicago looked at that and said, okay, how do we make sure that our police officers, if we're going to put them into communities while we have, these tremendous crowds coming in, let's make sure it's people who know the neighborhoods, have relationships with people in those communities. So that was one thing. Yeah. We only had one day. I think there were 70. Actually had a piece of paper from the alderman. Our alderman sent us all a letter basically saying, thank you for all behaving well. But and of course, yeah. And of course, thanking, and I don't know if he knew that in my household was one of the protesters. My son was there protesting for pro-Palestine. And I every day I was on the train coming home from the DNC, I would see footage and try to see if I could see his backpack or his shoes. And my friend goes, why don't you just call and see if he's home already? But but we had one day on last Tuesday, there were protests in front of the consulate for Israel, I believe, or the embassy. and there were 72 arrests last I'd seen. So I think the most arrests we had altogether were like 74. There was some scuffles, but other than that, I mean, a ton of joy, and that is a strategy, my friends.
Oh, it definitely is a strategy, and it's working too. I was looking at the numbers of new registered voters in the last few weeks. Kamala Harris has wiped out any kind of advantage. Well, I mean, Republicans always like to talk about the Hispanic vote, but what they're really talking about is they get up to like 40%. They feel like, great, we're doing great. You're still in the minority with the Hispanic vote, but a lot of that is eroded because of Kamala Harris now as the president. She has drawn a lot of the Democratic Hispanic voters back into the fold who were maybe upset with Biden. You have as well black women. What was it? 175% increase in voter registration for black women, which is going to make a major impact in Florida, in Texas, in Georgia, in North Carolina. You're going to get these are numbers we haven't seen, and there is no counterpunch coming from the Trump camp to offset it.
You mean that sharing videos humiliating a woman in a beauty pageant again who considered committing suicide is not a counterpunch? Except to, by the way, the woman that they replayed that video of her being, and they said that this is JD Vance, that I found footage of the first few minutes of the interview. She's a Trump supporter, by the way. Like what? She became one of his clients in his modeling agency. But yes, to your point, they have no strategy. They have no vision. All they have is being unkind and beyond unkind. They're cruel. We're finding more audio of JD Vance saying that the head of the American Federation of Teachers shouldn't be in charge of teaching kids because she doesn't have kids. Again, even though I'm sorry, I'm gonna start yelling, Matt.
You can. It's a safe space. You can yell here.
He said, what did he say? That when he mentioned that they're cat ladies and they're sociopaths, it was satire. But he doubled down. Now he's like, yeah, they shouldn't be brainwashing. Like they don't have a vision. They don't have a plan. They don't have policy. And that interview last night was fantastic. I love that moment
with Harris and Walz on CNN.
Yes, yeah. When Dana Bush said, that Donald Trump says you just suddenly turn black, and she was like, "Yeah, it's his playbook. What else you got?"
Next question. Next. We're done with that. I'm not going to play these games. I'm not going to let you. Did you hear what they said to you on the playground? No, she nipped that in the bud beautifully.
Yeah, and I hope that the media, and look, we are the media. We occupy, obviously commentators, and we have our opinions. So we're not journalists. I'm not a journalist. But the idea that you would just repeat what Republicans say as journalism, as part of an interview. I mean, that was the most. My husband and I were out for a walk. We go for walks at night with our son, who has physical therapy on a bicycle, and we listen to rallies and all the interviews and speeches, and we both screamed, "Why would you ask that question? What the freaking frack? What are you doing?"
Well, exactly. Well, because they're lazy, and it's safe for them with their corporate owners and their right-leaning advertisers to go after the left without having any kind of accountability on the right. No, that's why it's been interesting to watch the national media come off that debate or that interview. And it went so well for them, they were kind of left with the whole thing of, well, let me tell you what I think she really meant by this. I don't think she was telling the truth. I mean, when you get to the point where utter speculation is the only realm of attack you have, well, then it's clear that you're only there to attack. And so the national media really, I've been very impressed with how Harris and Walz have dealt with clearly unfriendly confines when it comes to the national media.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm sure locally that we had a radio host, and of course in Milwaukee they had other radio hosts who responded to Gus and his exuberance and his love for his father and his emotion with just the most disgusting displays of intolerance, of hatred, of male, all kinds of toxicity.
Well, and if I can mention really quick, from the fine folks at Heartland Signal who put that story out, I saw that there. Heartland Signal, go and check that story out, because the Chicago guys, it was awful. Yeah,
and it was the local host. I actually know one of them, and I hope I never have the displeasure of having to be in her presence again. She is she was a coach of a high school volleyball teams, boys and girls, and people were like, how are you treating the students if this is how you mock a 17-year-old. And I will, to be kind, I guess, to Amy Jacobson, she was most like, she said that was bizarre, how weird, like that kind of stuff. They would like, if they're going to call us weird, well, that's weird. And her co-host, Dan Proft, who does all the pink slime rags, like a bunch of that stuff, he was much crueler. Of course, the guy in Milwaukee was off the map, unkind. But that is all they have. When the New York Times is an opinion piece that joy is not a strategy, they never have a piece that cruelty is also not a strategy, because that is all they have. And if I'm gonna pick one, it's gonna be joy, Matt.
And you want to know the truth? It gives up the whole ghost with both the guy in Chicago and the guy in Milwaukee when confronted with the fact that, hey, you just basically ridiculed a kid with a developmental disability. You need to stop. They basically said, okay, yeah, maybe we were wrong, but Harris is horrible. You just sit there, say, I'm deeply sorry. I shouldn't have said this. I should have educated myself, and be done. And the reality is they just can't say anything without being an attack dog. And even when they are dead to rights jackasses, they basically can't help themselves.
No, and beyond that, it shouldn't have mattered. So for me, I don't know if we talked, I can't remember, so many things have happened. Did we talk after the DNC or just when
we talked on the Thursday? We talked on the last day. We didn't talk on that after that.
Yes, because I was in the press box during Governor Walz' speech on Wednesday. So I told you that I didn't see what was happening online. So I woke up to both pieces of information, which was all these horrible things that people were saying about Gus Walz, and also finding out that I didn't know that I don't think most of us knew that he had learning disabilities, a nonverbal disability, which I have a son who is nonverbal. So for me, like the rage was quickly surpassed and overtaken by the joy of knowing that we are this close, that we have a lot of work to do to elect a president and vice president with the second person in command who gets what it's like to raise a child or to have a loved one who has a lot of challenges in their lives. And it made me start crying, because it's why I ran for office.
Well, and you look at it, it's a child proud of his dad getting the vice president, just tears, and hope was there and tears coming down. How do you look at that? And I've got to make this bad. I mean, just what is wrong with you guys? Are all weird. You're all broken. You're just weird, broken people, man.
Yeah, we're putting together an army of mama bears and papa bears. A lot of parents of children with disabilities have reached out to me. We went door knocking right away. On Sunday, we'll be back out in Kenosha tomorrow, possibly Sunday. We're getting involved with a lot of different groups. I'm also going to start doing some door knocking in with nonpartisan groups, and mostly make sure that people are registered. To your point, if we get people registered to vote and they show up, this is going. We're going to make this happen.
Yep, get them to the polls.
All of us.
And pretty much every state has a website that tells you where your poll is going to be and how. And just we got to get people to polls. It's about voting. It's turnout. That's the head count. Let's go. Let's go back to JD Vance for a second. He says it's just a joke, like you having sex with furniture. Sure, we can go with that. The JD Vance is the worst vice president. I mean, I thought Dan Quayle was bad. Sarah Palin was atrocious. But J.D. Vance is clearly a guy who is so out of his league as far as this goes. He just doesn't know how to – he's desperately trying to appeal by looking like – he's trying to look like Governor Walz. And because he has no idea how Governor Walz does that, hello, fellow human beings, how are we today? Oh, a donut. That is a circular pastry. That looks delicious. And you're like, oh, my God, you are a broken individual there, Maybelline.
By the way, his team hates him. There's no way. I mean, there's so many things you could do. Like the way this works. Like I ran for a very small office, but if you're gonna like go to an event, they make sure that you know who the owner of the place is.
Yes.
They have what you're gonna have like pre-decided. You're gonna like the best thing on the menu or whatever the small talk is supposed to be. But beyond just those logistics of making sure the people in the restaurant or the bakery or the whatever actually want to be a part of this photo op, right? Like the woman behind the counter is like, I don't want to be on camera, right? And they were like, oh yeah, we'll take that out. what are you talking about? We'll take that out. C-SPAN had her on camera. Anyway, but on top of all that, did you see the haircut they let him go out in public with?
Oh, yes.
Oh, my God. And what was that? Business in the front, accident in the back? What was all this going on back? Like a toupee landed on top of just
It's a hair system. It's a hair system, according to Deadpool. It's his hair system, and nobody notices. You bring that up. Walls in Nebraska. Remember, he goes to that, and it's that Nebraska food item, which he goes to Nebraska. You do exactly what he did. They shut the place down, got okay. Well, they got the okay from the restaurant, shut the place down, let anyone say, hey, if you don't want to be part of this, don't have to be part of it. Yeah. Comes on in there. It's a stellar thing. And this is Vance. He is just constantly trying to play catch up. It's like this morning when he did that interview. He wants to go on out there and try to portray himself as some sort of equal option for Walls, and he is just a moron. And it is, it is amazing. I don't have no idea how in the heck that guy got to the final 3 within the Republican Party.
A little money from Peter Thiel.
I probably guess so.
Little billionaire money. Gotta have some of that sweet, sweet billionaire money. Have you seen Mark Cuban going after folks on like Megyn Kelly and all the far right conservatives about the tariffs? That's what he's doing.
Tommy Lauren, yeah, he went after her on that.
That's right. Yeah, he's like, how do you think tariffs work? They charge Walmart for buying all the goods from China, and then Walmart's going to jack up the prices. And they're like, no, we're taxing the foreign entities. That's not how that works.
Okay, we don't have any authority to tax a company in another country, you idiots. But hey, don't let that get in your way. So let's tell you what, let's take a break. When we come back, I've got an audio clip from Trump from La Crosse that I need to play for you, and then we get to ask the question about the national media again, okay? So Patti Vasquez is joining us once again. WCPT in the afternoon. She's going to be there in just a little bit, 5 to 7 p.m. And then, of course, 9 p.m. tonight here on AM 950 in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Let's take a break. It's the Matt McNeil Show here on your Friday. It's the Matt McNeil Show on your Friday. Patti Vasquez joining us right now. Patti, we talked about media and how it is blatantly biased this election cycle, and it is unbelievable. We had a month from that debate till the time that Joe Biden withdrew from the race of age matters, competency matters. We have to have these questions asked about Joe Biden and his mental fitness. Can he do it? And it was one of the reasons why he withdrew. I mean, there was a national narrative that he just couldn't do the job anymore. I'm going to play a video clip for you here. This is Trump yesterday in La Crosse, not edited. Here, Patrick, when you get the chance, let's play what he had to talk about with bacon and wind.
You take a look at bacon and some of these products, and some people don't eat bacon anymore. And we are going to get the energy prices down. When we get energy down, this was caused by their horrible energy wind. They want wind all over the place. But when it doesn't blow, we have a little problem.
Okay. So that's just a little nugget from that guy. Okay, so the question comes in is, this is clearly not someone who is mentally competent. The whole thing with Arlington National Cemetery, which I have, trust me, as a veteran, I have gone after that clown car brigade for whatever they try to do there. This is not someone who is mentally competent, yet where are any stories about Trump? What was that about bacon and wind? Like I said, that wasn't edited. He just was talking bacon, windmills, and it's like, okay, that is not someone who is all there.
No doubt about it. And I do love that comedian that's come back again. Remember during the pandemic, she would do like basically the
Sarah Paulson. Is it Sarah Paulson?
Yeah. Sarah, maybe it was Sarah though is definitely her name. And I just can hear her doing that or see her doing that segment of that's bacon and wind, and sometimes it doesn't blow, so you can't have a BLT. Like what are we talking? What are we talking about here?
I love the background of that. There are people like chanting like it's Happy Gilmore. Get in the hole! What are you yelling for? Bacon? Windmills?
Yeah.
Bacon-made windmills? What are you cheering for at this point?
No idea. I mean, and look, I guess the line of logic that I want to try to grab onto is that grocery prices were high and people were buying bacon because it's extra. And we just had testimony from Kroger CEOs that they were price gouging,
Yep.
that they made massive profits.
Yep.
And I mean, I can't remember which company it was yesterday. I saw that the CEO is making 502 times what an average worker makes. Do you know that before JFK brought down the corporate taxes and the billionaire taxes and for the uber wealthy, usually it was about 20 to 30 times max that the CEOs are making in comparison to their average workers. And we let this get out of the control. I mean, we go on about Reagan. Yeah.
Boar's, don't tell me Boar's Head Meat got there, because I guarantee their executive class was not focused on making healthy meats. I mean, it's what it is. Going back to how we started this conversation, though.
Yes.
Happiness and joy, which is definitely on display with Harris Walls. Uh-huh.
Yay.
It is amazing how bad Trump and Vance are happiness and joy. And it's one thing when they tried it and they kept walking into the rake in the yard and they just kept hitting themselves in the face. The fact that they have no ability, it seems like, to just be happy and joyful, that everything has to be mean-spirited, everything has to be an attack, everything has to be hate. There is something really wrong with the base core of MAGA right now, which is it is kind of scary.
Well, I think that's why I started with J.D. Vance trying to defend the fact that he was invoking a previously suicidal beauty pageant contestant in order to make fun of Kamala Harris. And he said, well, campaigning, he doesn't have to be all serious stuff. We can have fun and make jokes. Like, being asked, did you realize how much this woman suffered? And they're like, what? It's funny. Being mean. I mean, to your point, they think that that's having fun, that is being joyous, is at the expense of someone's mental health, at the expense of someone's personal safety. Now I just got a thing that Donald Trump is saying that the assassination attempt was an inside job. He's got to grab at things that seem, I guess, headline grabbing or salacious. That's all they have. They have anger. They have victimhood. That's what they have. All victimhood. And we don't even know now. Okay, don't even get me started on, like, did he even get hit at all?
Yeah.
Whose blood was it? And all these things in the assassination attempt.
I will say this about them: it is the importance of them to make their biggest supporters miserable is really kind of a god awful trait of, and the fact that they are so, I want to be miserable, I want to be horrible, I want to be angry. I think there is a reason why Harris Walls is such a breath of fresh air that where our politics have gone. And I do not blame Joe Biden. I mean, Joe Biden took over a freaking mess and he managed to drive this country through it. Now we have the option of, do we go back to the Mad Max villain in Trump, or do we go and try to find a happier, better America? And the happier, better America is resonating with most of us.
I think so too. I think that people are tired. One of my favorite things, even though I was hesitant to even want to watch Adam Kinzinger's speech, I do appreciate the idea that just for Republicans, I think that they're giving them a really important message in that, just because you vote for Kamala Harris doesn't mean you're a Democrat. It means you're a patriot, right? So there's also that element. In addition to joy, there's also like the reasonable level-headedness of going, look, we went down this path. Some people have admitted that they were part of the problem. And I've been judgmental and I'm trying to soften those edges. But yeah, I think there's both joy and level-headedness are what we're seeing, having that soberness of approaching real problems that people have with kindness, with solutions.
Take any line from Trump and you could put it into Furiosa. You could put it in the movie. Let me tell you about the bacon in the windmills. Would anyone think it's not a Morton Joe? No, they would all think it was a Morton Joe. I mean, that is the world we had. And you want to know the truth is, not a fan. I like happiness and good things. I'll tell you what, Patti, once again, your shows are brilliant. Listen in Chicago WCPT. That's 5 to 7 at nights in Minneapolis, St. Paul, 9 p.m. Patty, as always, my pleasure. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Volunteer, everybody. Get and talk to people.
Get out
More
there
than
and
jokes.
help everyone. Chicago, Seattle. Have a great Labor Day weekend. Minneapolis, St. Paul, hour 2 up next. Hour number 2 of the show here on Friday. Matt and Patrick here. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205 is the phone number. Patrick, I'm thinking of going on out to the fair again. It was interesting. One of the news outlets had a story. Was it Bring Me the News? Where they talked about there are people who go on out 6-7 times to the fair, and I can get that. I can get that, and especially if you've got some guy, you got your tickets, you just like to go out there. I can get that. I've only been out once this year. That was that last Sunday when it was brutally hot. But I'm thinking that if you get out there early enough on Labor Day morning, it's not a bad time to go because it's for some reason that Monday Labor Day is a pretty light day out there.
Yeah, I could imagine a lot of people kind of have already been through. Of course, it's the last day. It's not open as late as the other days of the fair. And I think people are just kind of, maybe just don't put as much investment in that final day.
Well, I think it has a lot to do with schools, too, because the schools all start the next day. And no one, as you said, no one wants to be out there. They want to make sure they've got lunches packed and backpacks are packed and everything's ready to go in schools. You don't want to do it. One thing I really do not like is do not run out of food. I get it. If you run out of food at your food stand at noon, say on Labor Day, cool. I get that. No problem. But I have gone over there a few times on Labor Day, and it is very disappointing to go to some place, and they're like, oh, yeah, we ran out of food yesterday. It's like, wait a second. Yesterday wasn't the last day of the fair, You put through all this hype and this excitement about these items. You got to make sure you have the items at least until the midday. The pickle stand, I think, does a pretty good job. They always have, I think those pickles on a stick they have tons of those. Who doesn't like a pickle on a stick, man?
No, and what you mentioned, that's kind of one reason why I'm kind of skittish about going on Labor Day is, as you said, some people are going to be wrapping up. Some people are, we're all done, we're out, we're just going through the motions, and then we're getting on out of here.
I think some of the ones like Sweet Martha's and Pronto Pups and stuff like that, they consolidate down the sites so they won't have as many of them open. Because last Sunday, there's going to be like 12 Pronto Pup stands through the fairgrounds. It's not great. Hey, trust me, I hit like 10 of them. They're fantastic. I love them. Pronto Pups. Oh, could eat them all the time. But no, that's the one thing I'm not a big fan of. I will say, too, it is a very different mentality to all the booths, whether it's like the education booth or some retailer out there. The first few days of the fair, they're like, welcome on in. It's great. And the last few days of the fair are like, oh, God, don't come in here, man. I don't want to have to tell you about my product. I just, you're not going to buy a tractor, are you? I might buy a tractor sometime. That tell you what, that State Fair does do a pretty good sell job on those suckers. 952-946-6205. The llama alpaca, they've opened it up. Are there two separate categories now? Is there the alpaca category and the llama category?
I'm not familiar with this, but could be possible if there's that much demand.
What, you have never heard of the llama costume contest?
I have not, unfortunately.
It is one of the best dang things I've ever seen in my life. And as a matter of fact, I actually think it's a catalyst. I think the State Fair needs a facial hair contest. That would be something special. That would be spectacular. Have it in the Coliseum, like where you march around the cows and the horses. March out the hipsters, man. March them on out of there with their facial hair. And it's like, how long have you been going that fair? Oh, Maddie, happy. Until that does happen, come on, State Fair, get on that. Until that does happen, the llama costume contest is one of the most surreal things. The llama that was dressed like the Loch Ness Monster. That is, that's Vogue, man. That's llama Vogue. Llama Vogue. Yeah. Speaking of your fringe magazines, that was great. The Statue of Liberty was pretty good too. There's some of the people, they put in some real time and effort, and the llamas seem to be okay with it. Although here's the one thing I have is if I'm a llama and I look at someone guy next to me, because obviously I'm not seeing my costume. If you've got Batman llama, and Batman llama's looking over and he sees Marilyn Monroe llama, does he go, kind of looks like a llama? Not sure it's a llama. What's up with the hair? And is the Marilyn Monroe looking back going, it kind of looks like a llama. It looks like Batman, too. Is it Batman llama? Is Batman a llama? I didn't know that. Or do they just say, yeah, llama. All right. You're in the same boat as I am in. I don't know. That was on Wednesday. If you get tickets, they sell that out at the Coliseum apparently every year. That's packed to the gills. People line up early to get in the seats for that one. So just keep that in mind. Some local news to touch on here before we get to Paul Metsa, kind enough to join us at the bottom of the hour. We got a new song from him that we're going to play at the end of the show today for our Friday music, and then we're just going to talk about stuff. I'm going to find out, has he ever thought about writing a song about the state fair?
I will have to ask him. Well, you can ask him because we'll have him on.
Beautiful. We'll have to check on that. 2 women have been charged with running a LuLuLemon theft ring from a Twin Cities nail salon, which netted them more than $5,000 worth of merchandise. Mai Hong Tivan, 55 of Minneapolis, and Kathy Nguyen, 24 of Crystal, were charged in Thursday with an organized retail theft ring after being involved in a series of heists from LuLuLemon. According to the complaint, now, by the way, I find that interesting because my wife one year for a whether I can't remember if it was a birthday or a Christmas, wanted something from LuLuLemon, and I went in there, and that place is kind of, I don't think it's easy to steal from LuLuLemon. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just, but it seemed like there were a lot of people watching for that sort of thing, and of course they have the tags and everything. According to the complaint, police became aware of the string of thefts on June 19th. They identified Charmaine Hawes, 27, as part of at least 9 separate burglaries from a LuLuLemon store on 3rd Avenue North in Minneapolis. 3rd Avenue North. Oh, that's that one that used to be over in the that restaurant where the Dayton Boy used to run over there. Yeah, I know that. Yeah. The Dayton Boy. Sometimes this town's a little small, where the Dayton Boy was running the restaurant, the Swedish place. They had good pancakes, by the way. Hawes allegedly stole bags, put more stolen items in them, and then left the store without paying. GPS theft tags on the bags showed her bringing the items to Diamond Nail Salon in Crystal before leaving with a large sum of money. GPS then showed the clothes were moved to a home in the 500 block of Bass Lake Road in Crystal, where both Van and Nguyen lived. Hawes was taken into custody on August 23rd. During police interrogation, she confirmed that Van would send her pictures of what to steal and then bring them to her for Van to resell, and paying her $400 for the stolen items. After getting search warrants for the nail salon home and Van's car, Van was taken into custody. Once in the jail, she spoke Vietnamese over the phone to someone. When police arrived in the home, they found Nguyen and others quickly removing multiple white plastic bags of stolen merchandise. I think I know where the call was going. Multiple bags were found throughout the house, and Van admitted to organizing several thefts since May. This is so specific, though. According to the complaint, the stolen merchandise far exceeds $5,000, though. Both the suspects have their first court appearances on Friday. There's a $50,000 bail for Nguyen, and Van's bail has been set at $70,000. So, yeah, there you go. There's like, okay, I am not a fashion maven. If you're looking at the video of me right now, you are laughing your ass off. Of course I'm not. I'm slack or casual. I will say this. If I could ever afford to deck myself out head to toe in Burberry, would do it. I think their stuff is really top notch. I like how it looks. I don't know if I'd be brazen enough to continually go to the same store over and over again and try to steal from that same store a checklist of specific items that were being handed to me. I mean, that I know criminals are dumb, but man, that's like really dumb. I mean, are you putting like a fake mustache on or something? Are you wearing the alpaca costumes? Is that what it is? Oh, I didn't see anything here. It was just the Statue of Liberty came in and all the bags disappeared.
The all LuLuLemon Paca.
I swear to God, I thought it was the Loch Ness Monster, and now half our merch is gone. That's brazen. I'm going to guess that if someone recorded that phone call, they might have an interpreter handy. I'm just going to guess that might be called what they call evidence in a future trial. We'll have to see. 952-946-6205. One last story here before we get into the break here. And I want to bring this up because, dude, man, have you seen how many dead Amaryl ash borer trees? The Amaryl ash borer is taking all the ash trees out? I mean, how many? You go down like a street and like 8 of the trees are dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, man. This is, we've had this problem before where they plant a specific tree and they plant a ton of them and all of a sudden something comes in and it does damage to them. And the problem is as our winters are getting warmer and warmer, you need to get a certain level of cold to kill off the buggies. And we're just not even getting close to that anymore. So it's a real problem here. I think there is one bug, and this is up in northern Minnesota. It has to get to minus 20 and stay minus 20 overnights for 7 days, and it kills off the larva. And they haven't had stretches like that in some of the areas up there in years. Alicia Haggerty, an arborist for 11 years and the owner of Arbor Gold Tree Service in Plymouth, is fighting to save oaks from an invasive insect called the two-line chestnut borer. Usually have to pay extra for that. All right, sorry. The two-line chestnut borer. Thank you. May I have another? I'm a child. She says the last 2 years, she and her team have found more than 1,500 oak trees infected or at risk of infection by the borer. Now, I'm going to make a presumption that that's 1,500 trees just in the northwest part of the suburban metro area where Plymouth is at. Yes, I know it's Plymouth and not Plymouth. Yeah, I'm presuming that is just in that area. I can't imagine like they'd be going to Rosemount or Woodbury to do something. Maybe they are. Maybe they are. But I got to imagine most of the people that they're finding these infected oaks at are kind of near their shop. The beetles crawl through damaged spots in a tree and lay their larvae inside, which feeds on the inner layers, essentially for growth and production. Two-line is a little black beetle that tunnels through the trees. It kind of lives underneath the bark in the tree, and it tunnels through the vascular system, essentially destroying the tree. Great. The Department of Natural Resources says two-line borer damage has been spotted in more than 36 Minnesota counties, from Lake of the Woods in the north, Houston in the south, Ottertail in the west, and Chisago in the east. Still no one knows the exact scale of the beetle invasion. Well, I mean, I'm going to guess it's like 1963 again, and it's everywhere at this point. And seriously, I'm going to guess it's everywhere. I'm not trying to be glib. I'm going to guess it's everywhere. I love oak trees. I grew up, I was born in Minneapolis, but I grew up on the East Coast, and the oaks out there are spectacular. I love oak trees. This one's, are we just going to lose another whole series of trees, or they're all going to be gone? The populations are increasing because we are seeing more and more trees affected by it, explains Megan O'Neill, the forest health specialist for the DNR. Well, I guess there you go. It's we can't have nice things, man. That's what it feels like. We just can't have nice things. And, I understand it's a little thing. And, we have climate change everywhere you see it. It happens everywhere. The trees are changing. The animals are changing. All this is changing. And we see it in front of our eyes, yet we still have complete and total stupid people constantly trying to say it doesn't exist. This is climate change. We used to have tree beetles from Texas destroying trees in Lake of the Woods County. That's climate change. And until we start taking it more seriously, what's next? The birches? Well, the birches can barely survive down in the Twin Cities anymore. You don't see birch trees in the metro area with that great, beautiful birch bark on them. You don't see that anymore. They're all kind of, because it's too hot, kind of bumpy and stuff. They don't look that good. They don't look anything like the ones that you find up in the very northern parts of the state, and those are starting to look bad. It's climate change, stupid. That's what it is. And until we take it seriously and say to ourselves, maybe we should, try to stop the absolute torching of the planet, that might be bad. Until we do that, well, I guess this is just the consequences for our stupidity. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. MinPost has some very interesting numbers about financial stuff. We're going to talk about that when we come on back. It is the Matt McNeil Show here on your Friday. AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. There's the Matt McNeil Show. There is a lot of signs that things are going well for the Democrats, the DFL, no matter how you want to cut it. I talked with Patti Vasquez last hour about the stunning number of new voter registrations going on in certain demographics. The excitement to vote this election cycle has, where it was lagging under Biden, now with Harris is way beyond Trump. The excitement somewhere around 80% for Harris. It's around 55% for Trump was the last poll I saw. The state fair booth. I mentioned the state fair booth. You go to the state fair booth and it's a case where there's the DFL booth is packed to the gills, and there's no one at the Minnesota GOP booth. And I've had one person go, but Matt, we're in the liberal bastion of Minneapolis, St. Paul. First of all, it's a state fair. There's a ton of people that come from outstate into the state fair. Plus the fact that Minneapolis, St. Paul has suburbs where there are some conservatives. They just don't want to go there. Well, another way you can see it is how much money these committees are taking in. And MinPost has the latest reporting numbers here. Independent expenditure committees and funds, political committees and funds, campaign committees, and as well caucus and party committees. And I specifically want to talk about the party committees, the House DFL caucus and the House GOP caucus, as well as also the state party funding as well. The numbers are stark. So, once again, the House is up for grabs this election cycle. The Minnesota House is up for grabs. I had somebody tell me that a Republican came to their door, the Republican candidate, and very much insisted, this is in the suburbs, very much insisted, I'm really not a Republican. I'm only running under the party name. I'm really an independent. I can't stand a lot of the things the Republicans stand for. That is the story I have been told. I have not gotten a confirmation on that. Or who is the candidate? I'm dying to find that out. I am dying to find out which Republican candidate is trying to play themselves as, really, I'm a pesky independent. No, you're a Republican. And you cannot trust Republicans. They've lied repeatedly. If you are dumb enough to trust them, then you're just dumb enough to get what you're going to get. Because that party, the Republican Party in Minnesota, is not controlled by anyone locally. They're told what to do from somewhere else. Now, that being said, let's look at fundraising. First of all, the DFL House Caucus. This is the money they have on hand from both last year and this year. $3,720,899. That is a lot of money. for the DFL House Caucus alone, the House Republican Conference Committee, HRCC, has $1,634,269. Basically, not even close to half of what the DFL has right now. And reminder, they're supposed to be excited and geeked and ready to go. This because we're going to take back the Minnesota House. Yeah, I don't think you are. Your motivation, your excitement, it's not there. But your money, you're getting trounced. Now, granted, just because a party has a lot of money or a group has a lot of money doesn't mean, A, they're going to spend it, which they should, or B, they spend it wisely, which is another problem that you have. But you got this. This is just a temperature gauge of the people giving money to a fringe group. This is, once again, the DFL House Caucus or the House Republican Caucus, the State House Republican Caucus. That is stunning. In a year that they're trying to take it back, they can't even get half the amount of interest financially that the Democrats are getting. The Senate is actually, it's pretty even. The DFL Senate, and once again, there's only one Senate seat up for grabs. The DFL Senate Caucus is $1,600,000. Senate Victory Fund is $1,678,000. So my guess is a ton of that money is pouring into that Senate race out in the West Side. That's the case. Also, we should talk about the state party fundraising, the Minnesota DFL and the Republican Party of Minnesota, because this is sad. I mean, this is sad. It's hilarious, too. I mean, folks, before anyone thinks, I'm laughing with this. Let's start with the Democratic Party, the DFL. The DFL State Central Committee has raised this year and last year on hand $4,614,171. It's a lot of money for a state party. That's a lot of money for a state party. The Republican Party of Minnesota, it's close. They're right there. $339,369. Let me repeat those two numbers for you again. $4,614,171 versus $339,369. As a matter of fact, if I may, let me do Matt's Math Corner, and let me see if I can remember how I can do my percentages here. Let's see. This would be 339. I'll just round it to the 339 divided by 4614000 equals, wow. Wow, that's bad, man. You guys have made basically 7%. The GOP, the Republican Party of Minnesota, their fundraising for their state party fundraising unit has made 7% of what the DFL has made. 7%. And trust me when I say some of that money is going to be going into that Senate race and those House races. The article also goes on here to talk about some of these independent spending groups, political committee fundraising, which once again overwhelmingly, what's interesting about these is they list them as Democrat or purple, which is like Deloitte Political Action Committee, which apparently must give money to both the Republicans and Democrats. What they don't list is anything Republican. And don't get me wrong, there are wealthy Republicans who are scrawling checks out left and right to try to help out. I don't know how much that's the case here in the state of Minnesota. That might not be covered in this story, but overwhelmingly the Democratic groups seem to be very much outraising the Republican groups. In the Independent Expenditure Committee fundraising, once again, it is not even funny. The Democrats are just trouncing the Republicans. They have two groups in that category that are making over $1 million, $1,644,000, $1,250,000, and one close, the Alliance for a Better Minnesota State PAC, that's $900,000. The best they've got on the Republican side is the Advanced Minnesota Independent Expenditures Committee, which is $6.99. It's yet another sign that people, I mean, Republicans, I feel sorry for you because you've had to pay tribute to Trump, and you're having to compete every time the guy comes out with digital trading cards with that you see money disappearing into that hole. I see that. But man, couldn't have happened to a better bunch of people. Bon voyage! 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. When we do come on back, Paul Metsa is going to join us. We're going to talk music and all sorts of good things with him. It's the Matt McNeil Show here on your Friday. AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. One of the greater songwriters you'll ever find on this planet, one of the most important musical people the state's ever produced, and a man who has got actually a media legacy, which is pretty outstanding. Paul Metsa is kind enough to join us. Wall of Power Radio Hour airs 6 to 7 p.m. on Saturday, and he is kind enough to join us today from the palatial confines of your place up in Duluth, right?
That's where I'm coming from. Let me know what my vocal feed is. Should I turn?
No, you sound
you
sound pretty good there, my friend.
Okay, great. How do I look?
Oh my God, you're better than me, for God's sakes. I keep looking at myself. What the hell happened there? I had the opportunity on Friday last week, to swing on by and say hi, man. It was nice to see your place.
Yeah, and I'm not too far from anywhere you come when you come visit your daughter at UMD. So you're welcome anytime, of course.
Well, dude, you're right up the street from the Duluth Grill. I mean, This is a no-brainer, man. I'll meet you over at the Duluth Grill. We'll just sit there and trust me, there are plenty of things on that menu. I'll be entertained all the time.
Have you ever been to OMC?
No.
OMC is owned by the same guy, Tom Hansen. Okay. And one of the best barbecue places in the Twin Ports. He's got about 4 joints. Everyone is great.
Okay. All right. With OMC, where is that, in Duluth or Superior?
It's in Duluth, right on Superior Street. On
Superior Street. Beautiful. All right. I'm okay. No, Duluth has become a shockingly good food town. And it is, and that was sneaky how that happened, because all of a sudden it's like every place I've gone up there. I went to Burger Paradox one time. That was great. That was just great. Very good.
Owned by the same guy,
is
Tom
it?
Hansen.
Well, I have been very impressed with the quality of food you can get in Duluth now. So it definitely gives you another reason to go up there.
Well, I don't mean to feel bad, Matt, but you know what I'm going to have for dinner tonight?
What's that, man? You got a pasty?
From Paul's Market in Evelyn.
Oh, man. Now you're just being cruel. You're being cruel. Oh, Paul's Pasties in Evelyn. If you've not done there, I mean, they do it the old school Italian way up there, and they know how to do the crust. And it's just, that's just brilliant. The best pasty you can find on the range.
Absolutely. If not Minnesota.
If not the country. If not I mean, seriously, it's that good. It is absolutely outstanding. I'm not doing too bad because my kids are going to bring home for me from the fair Dimitri's, the gyros from Dimitri's over at the State Fair.
Oh, those are great.
Those are the ones by the carousel over by Fox 9. Yeah, they're bringing me one of those because I've only had like 9 of them this week.
Did you catch any music at the fair?
We caught, it was a great swing band was over at the DNR stage. And so here's the funny thing. Gina and I have been taking dance classes, and this band starts riffing off, and they were going great. And we just said, I looked at her and said, okay, we can't pass this up. And it was Red Rock Swing Band. Red Rock Swing Band was the band.
Cool.
And we went out there and we were dancing. It was great fun. Now, it was also that last Sunday where it was basically the air temperature of Savannah. And so we weren't going to be doing that for too long. But it was, a good big band that knows how to jam. That's old school, but it's so much fun.
Well, speaking of the Minnesota State Fair, of course, you were talking about my media legacy, but I've got a show on Saturday mornings on KDAL, 610 AM, 103.9 FM from 10 to noon. And I had a couple of weeks ago, I had Nate Duncan in, who's the leader of Trailer Trash, but he's also the music booker at the Minnesota State Fair.
Okay. We have to talk because I want him to bring a band that. Okay, so when I went down to New Orleans last November, Paul hooked me up with a friend of his down there, and she was fantastic. And she goes, go see Rory Danger and the Danger Dangers. They had an album release party over at Tipitina's. We went down there, caught that show. I am like, how is this band not huge? They're fantastic. Right. We've got to get Rory Danger and the Danger Dangers up to the Minnesota State Fair.
Well, Nate says he starts booking in October. Because I'm pushing to get my band, Cats, some of the stars there, because we will be celebrating our 50th anniversary next summer, 2025. We started in 1975 in Olcott Park in Virginia, Minnesota.
I know Olcott Park. Olcott Park used to have the best jungle gym equipment as a kid because it was all space, like spaceships and stuff, and it was lots of exposed bolts and nails. It was great fun.
Right across from the clinic.
Yeah, the Charles B. Lenant Clinic, which was my great-grandfather's medical clinic up there. Yeah. Where would you play? Would you play Leinenkugel stage, or where? I mean, obviously, grandstand would be nice.
I'd like to think we're good enough to do the main stage, but really, the lining stage would work, as I'm a kind of longtime fan of Leinenkugels. Remember back then in the early 70s and then late 70s when we started playing the 400 bar. They had Leinenkugels, and that was kind of the big imported beer in Minneapolis was Leine's.
Okay. It was coming way over in the Eau Claire region. Yeah. Well, it was, okay, there is some element, I will say, that one of the things I think that is long gone from the Midwest, and something you saw on the range, you saw it everywhere from Nebraska up through Michigan, was the local beers. And granted, I mean, obviously the business model wasn't going to sustain it being so individual and unique, one guy with 6 kegs in his basement sort of thing. But, gosh, there used to be so many great small town beers across America that are long history. I'm kind of glad to a point Grain Belt's still around because that is, a bit of an institution here in the state. But yeah, I mean, there used to be so many, I've been to a few museums where it's stunning how every town had their own beer, and they were all pretty unique.
Well, now, Matt, you look at Duluth, and speaking of hometown beer, I was the first guy to play the Fitker's Brew House 30 years ago. And they were like one of the first in the state. Right around the corner from where I live now is you can get, oh, God, I'm spacing it out. It'll come to me, but there's a great beer in Superior, the Earth Rider beer. Mm-hmm. They've got a great Caribou Lake beer. I love a hoppy IPA, and this place that's right around the corner is really good too. It'll come for me. But there's a lot of good beer in the Twin Ports.
I'm grateful they haven't tried to do. No one's, at least I don't know of anyone that's tried to do this. It's funny when I try to see people that try to make wineries, and I'm like, okay. A Duluth wine sounds like the beginning of a 911 call. So I don't, stick with the beer, maybe a little bit of the hard spirits, but I think the wine, I don't think it's wine territory.
Oh, it's coming to me now. Bent Paddle.
Oh, yeah, there it is. I know that one, yeah.
And then they've got a beautiful stage indoor and a great stage outdoors. There's a really good band up here called Salty Dogs that play every Monday night. Yep. And but they probably have music in the summer 3 to 4 nights a week. So if you want beer, you want good live music, come to Duluth.
I asked the question whether or not earlier in the show you had ever written a song about the Minnesota State Fair. You've been to the Minnesota State Fair tons of times, correct?
Oh, certainly. Yeah. I remember in 1968, my grandpa Paul, that was my mother's dad. Her maiden name was Paul, of course. We went to the fair, and we went to it was like a little train caboose, and it said experience an LSD trip. And so I walked in with Grandpa, and they had flashing lights. They had a joint and a needle behind glass. And Grandpa was never the same after that. But then in 1974, I went down once again with my grandparents who lived in Moore, Minnesota, and saw the Ramones which was kind of that sparked the Minnesota punk rock scene. Wow. All the guys in the Suicide Commandos and all the rest, everybody was out there. So I remember they came out. The bass player was wearing a tutu and bunny boots. There was a bunch of bikers at the front that were lighting paper airplanes on fire and throwing them to the stage. But that was a legendary rock and roll show at the Minnesota State Fair.
Where did they play? Which venue? Was it the main stage?
No, I think it was on the teen stage.
The teens? The Ramones played the teen stage.
Yep. Wow.
Did you ever see the frozen whale they had out there for a long time? There's a story in the Star Tribune about that.
No, was that the one that RFK Jr. cut the head off?
No.
And
Okay, I'm fascinated by the idea there was an LSD trip booth at the Minnesota State Fair, and why did they ever get rid of it outside of it was probably the lamest experience?
Because after once the early 70s kept in, you didn't really need that because you kind of went there already psychologically prepared, if you know what I'm talking about.
You did write a song about the St. Louis County Fair, though, and you did send this to me. We're not going to be able to play it. I'll make sure I share it later on social media. But you did that. When did you write that song?
I wrote it in 1994, and I got some money from the IRRB, and we did a video for it. So the video that you can see, if you go to paulmetsa.com, see the video, or it's on YouTube. But we actually did it on the St. Louis County Fairgrounds in Hibbing. It was last year before they moved it to where the Minnesota Discovery Center is now.
And where is that's in Duluth?
Hibbing.
Oh, in Hibbing. Okay, the old Hibbing site.
Yep.
Okay. The St. Louis County Fair. I mean, obviously, I did a lot of fairs, and I've gone to a lot of county fairs in Iowa and Minnesota and stuff. I don't think I've ever been to the St. Louis County Fair.
It's a great fair. Great fair.
But did it have? Obviously, it's kind of a feeder system to our state fair, so there's always the cows and the chickens and all that stuff. But was there anything particular about that fair that was just outside of it was St. Louis County's own one?
Well, it was part of the racetrack, so that was the big thing at night. Was watch stock cars race. Very exciting.
I love the fact that the state fairgrounds now, you can go around on the outside of the grandstand, and then that history building they have, I think over where the old LSD thing used to be, they have the history of it and how that race cars, and of course they had Dan Patch that would run out there, and how that was just a huge deal. And then they brought the race cars in, and that was even a bigger deal, although apparently it must have just infuriated everyone in St. Paul that it was up there, by Falcon Heights, because that was I can't imagine how loud that was.
There was a writer that just moved to Minneapolis from New Orleans named Michael Tizaran. And you should have him on your show. A great writer. He's written about Zydeco and the history of New Orleans. Oh, yeah. And he posted an old post in the Minnesota State Fair from '63 that had Zaccarini, the human cannonball, and also basketball playing dogs. Okay. But it also had Buster Keaton and Jack Benny that same year.
Okay, so they were kind of later on in their careers at that point.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. But that would have been amazing.
Most of the bands you're seeing at the State Fair are kind of later on in their careers.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, so I saw Rush there back when they came through in 2010, and that was their Time Machine tour. And so they played the entire Moving Pictures album, top to bottom, the beginning of the second half. Great show. And the guy came on out and he said, actually, we played the fair once before, They played it apparently as a young, 18, 19-year-old Canadian kids
Canada.
came down, played one of the stages there. I don't know if it was the teen stage or where, but they played the stage. And I contacted that guy that does their database, that does all their things, because I noticed, I went and looked to see when this was. It wasn't in their list. It was the first time he'd ever heard. That was one of the first concerts ever by them in the United States. And so, it is amazing. You can still catch some of these bands. I mean, I remember when Dury was out there, Gully Boys has been out there. These other bands that are out there, that you can catch some really great bands on the upswing.
I saw Bob Dylan there in 1992.
Nice.
And it was one of those Dylan shows where it's like, what song is he playing now? And he took a while to get his show together. But by the time he got to Song to Woody, which was the first original song he actually wrote that people knew about, it was transcendent.
Only State Fair memories, man. State Fair memories are good stuff. Let's take a break. You got a new song I want to talk about when we come on back, and we're going to play that song as well when we do come on back. Paul Metsa joining us once again. Wall of Power Radio Hour here, 6 to 7. He's up on KDAL in Duluth on the weekends as well. And, of course, still in institution. Paul Metsa, paulmetsa.com?
Yeah.
PaulMetsa.com. You can go find the video for the St. Louis County Fair song, as well as all the stuff, including the song we're going to talk about here about this upcoming election. Paul Metsa, kind enough to join us today. We'll take a break. Come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show here on your Friday. AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. An absolutely freaking outstanding week of interviews this week. And the cherry on top of my Sunday is Paul Metsa. Once again, Our Power Radio Hour on Saturday night, 6 to 7 p.m. And you, obviously, like all of us, are just a smidge concerned about this upcoming election. Talk about your latest song, Walking in a Woman's World, here, that you're putting out here. I shouldn't say you're putting it out with this election here. You're making sure this is getting out there.
Yeah, I actually wrote it in 1993 for my mother, and I debuted it on January 31st, 1994. Getting ready to leave Minneapolis, and I had a sold-out show with a 10-piece band at the Old Guthrie Theater. Last time Mom saw me play, she passed away just a few months later, and it's called Walking in a Woman's World. And the last chorus goes, a little girl on the playground dreams of growing up. Let her be a fireman, a princess, or a cop. Let her be what she wants to be. Let her not pretend. Let her be a king or queen or the next president. So it ended up on, we recorded it then. And then when Hillary was running in 2016, we got a little action with it. But then when Kamala took over from President Biden, salute them both, we thought now's the time to re-release it. So I hooked up with my good friend, Scott Harold, who runs Rock the Cause Records. They're a great organization. I put on Ain't Gonna Whistle Dixie Anymore 4 years ago with Willie Walker, my answer to the Charlottesville Nazi March. So we put it out. It's for free. Any progressive people out there, any organization, any women, anybody that wants it can use it for free. I want to just put a little energy, musical energy, into this election.
Well, and you gave me a link page. I'm going to make sure I post this on all the social medias. If you want to get this song, you will be able to get it and listen to it. We're going to end the interview listening to it here in just a second. But Paul, God, man, I'm definitely doing another holiday interview with you coming up here. The holiday.
Oh, yeah.
We'll definitely do another hour of there. But God, man, I just love chatting with you because it's like I said, it's a great interview about really nothing, but it's the best interview of the freaking week, hands down, every single time.
Now, does this show, is this airing in Chicago and Seattle?
Well, that 3 o'clock hour is going to be airing. It does air in the Chicago and Seattle markets here, but I'll make sure I link to the stations out there as well with this interview.
Yeah, because hello to my Chicago friends. I played the Harlem Avenue Lounge in Berwyn, and I used to play the Crocodile Cafe in Seattle years ago.
Beautiful. God, man. The stories, the best part,
I've got a few.
Paul Metsa, once again, the Wall Power Radio Hour, 6 to 7 on Saturday nights, and the KDAL stuff up in Duluth, that's on Saturday mornings?
Yeah, and they can stream it, KDL610.com. Tomorrow night, I got a great show on the Wall of Power Radio Hour. We're featuring Kurt Nelson, a longtime Twin Cities musician. He's got throat cancer. He's not going to do any treatment. He's just riding it out. So we're playing his songs, have a great interview with him. Just real solid member of the Minnesota music community.
Walking in a Woman's World. It's Paul Metsa. This takes us out today. Paul, thank you very much. Everyone out there,
Matt.
have a wonderful Labor Day weekend. We'll be back to you on Monday. Or on Tuesday, rather. Until then, see ya.
See you, Matt. Thanks.
Stranger on Queens Boulevard asked her for a light. She said no, and he struck her down. As 38 looked on, now those 38 still hear her cry, since Kitty has passed on. She ain't safe in a straight line. She ain't safe on the ground. She ain't safe on an airplane. She ain't safe on the ground. Because my grandma was once just a girl. And I won't stop running till I'm walking in a woman's world. Karen came home from college with stories of where she's been. In this town 10 years ago, she was a homecoming queen. We won't hear those stories now. Or meet her boyfriend Dave. It was a short while.